Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. I'm Chief Sweet and today I'm going to teach you how to take care of a bearded dragon. Now I've been keeping and breeding bearded dragons my whole life, and don't let me fool you, I've made my fair share of mistakes along the way, as you will too. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, don't worry about it. I'm going to ease you into the reptile hobby. If you are a new owner of a baby bearded dragon, it is very important to know that these lizards do get up to 2 feet long like my male here, Bubba. And not only that, they're going to get this size in as little as a year. So keep that in mind as we talk about our first topic today, and that is tank size. So if you got a baby bearded dragon, a good tank size is 40 gallons minimum. You won't be able to keep them in there for long though. Before 6 months of age, you'll have to upgrade to at least a 120 gallon tank, which is 4 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet. I always tell people start off with a 120 gallon so that way you don't have to upgrade later, but I know a lot of people get their bearded dragons from a PetSmart, Reptile Expo, or someplace like that, and they usually only sell 40 gallon tanks. So I know a lot of you probably have 40 gallon tanks, but don't worry about that. Remember to save up for a bigger one in the future. Now, if you have done some research online, you probably see a lot of people who keep theirs in 40 or 55 gallon tanks, and the bearded dragon has grown up just fine. It looks healthy, and you're asking yourself 120 gallons, that's a huge tank. Is it really necessary? No, it's not really necessary at all. Back in the day, I used to keep my bearded dragons in 55 gallon tanks, and then times have changed, and I don't know why I never looked back on it back then and said like, wow, this dragon is like way too big for this tank. But like I said, we all evolve and we're always learning and pushing forward. That's what my mistake was back in the day, keeping my bearded dragon in too small of a tank. And a lot of people are still in this ideology, but I like to put it into an example like this. This bearded dragon's tank is going to be its home. Now, you live in a home, and the home is pretty good size most places. You have a good sized room, you have a living room. Well, the bearded dragon, its entire house is the tank. You can take him out, let him walk around, everything like that, but he's living in this tank for most of his life. Do you want the tank size to resemble a jail cell, very tight, small, or do you want to let it resemble an apartment, which is a little bit bigger, or a house, which is massive? Now, most people don't have house size enclosures, which is probably like an 8x4x3 size tank that's in feet, huge tanks. A lot of people will go for the 120 gallon, which is like a small apartment size for a bearded dragon, if that makes sense. Now, I know I just recommended a 120 gallon tank, and the thing about that is there's not a lot of options out there. So what you could do is you could go online. There's all kinds of places like Dubia, Roaches, and tons of other stores, or you could go a cheaper route and build one. I have plenty of videos on my channel to teach you how to do that for as little as $400 or less. And the $400 is like a custom background, the works. If you want to go cheaper, you can get away with like doing a 120 gallon tank for like around maybe 200 to 250 bucks. Another question I get asked a lot is, can two bearded dragons stay in the same tank together and be buddies? No, they cannot. Bearded dragons are solitary creatures, and if you put two bearded dragons together, they're gonna duke it out and fight. Or one's gonna go ahead and like out territory the other and just be the dominant bearded dragon inside that, and the other one's just going to wither away. It's not going to get the resources it needs, and I've seen a lot of bearded dragons do this. There's going to be one bearded dragon in a tank, and the other one's just skin and bones, just withering away, and eventually just dies. So do not house two bearded dragons in the same tank, okay? Now we talked about housing. Let's get to the second topic, which is honestly one of the most important topics, and that is lighting. So lighting-wise, you're going to need 3 things. You're going to need a heat lamp, a UVB lamp, and an LED lamp for daylight. Out of 3 of those things, one of them is the most expensive and the most necessary. You have to, I repeat, you have to use a UVB light, and specifically use a UVB tube T5 high output light as well. I highly recommend an Arcadia 12%. I use those as well as Arcadia 14% for a little bit of my bigger cages when they're sitting on top of mesh. I have a whole video dedicated to UVB and the differences between mesh and how much it cuts through on my YouTube channel as well if you want to dive into that. But for now, that's what you're going to want. Now, if you have a 40 gallon tank, I do recommend the 12%. Don't get the 14%. Arcadia, you can also use Zoo Med 10.0. I see a lot of this as well. The Zoo Med sells like a UVB box, and it's the T5, but it comes with a free bulb. And it has bearded dragons all over the front of it, but the free bulb is not a 10.0. You want a 10.0 Zoo Med linear bulb, and it comes with a 5.0. So remember that. You're gonna have to get a 10.0. Even if it comes for free, it's not gonna be enough UVB. Now, you've heard me say UVB, and why is it important? Bearded dragons need UVB lighting to help the body manufacture the vitamin D3 required for proper calcium absorption from food. If you don't provide this, your bearded dragon will develop metabolic bone disease and suffer from brittle bones and deformities. So it is very, very important that you get your hands on a T5 tube style UVB bulb. Now, this is very important. I see a lot of these coil bulbs being sold in the market, and as well as bearded dragon cats. Do not use these mini compact bulbs for your bearded dragon. They produce little to no UVB. They're pretty much useful for a leopard gecko, which is a nocturnal animal and doesn't need really any UVB, but a bearded dragon, it needs high amounts of UVB. On a UVI scale, which again, I have a video talking all about UVB, a bearded dragon needs a 5, and these coil bulbs produce a 0.5 to a 1. And that's up close. I'm talking 3 inches away. So do not, I repeat, do not get a coil bulb. Get the tube style UVB bulbs. And again, like I said, if you got a bearded dragon, one thing you're gonna notice once you've got them is it can be quite expensive. But once you get these things, it's done. You get them and it's good for a while. Especially the tank. If you get a tank, it's good forever. And if you get one of these tube style UVB bulbs, they last for a year or more. I have an Arcadia 12% bulb for my bearded dragon, and it's producing the exact same amount when I first got it to now, and it's 1.3 years old. That's right. So it could be a while. If you don't, I have a UVB meter, so if you don't, you maybe after a year, go ahead and replace the bulb. It's all you need to replace. It's much cheaper than buying the whole kit. So it is expensive, but it's the most necessary part of your lighting. The second most necessary part of your lighting is heating. You're gonna want at least 100 watt basking bulb, which is a halogen. Make sure it's halogen. You can get these at pet stores, but I can assure you, you could get them even cheaper at a Home Depot. These halogen lights that they sell in pet stores are just marketed towards reptile keepers. You can buy this exact same bulb style at a Home Depot or a Lowe's, and they're called PAR 38 floodlights. They produce a high amount of heat. Be worried about that. So if you get a PAR 38 floodlight, get like, I think it starts at 80 watt, and that's the equivalent to like a 90, 120 watt. For a 40-gallon tank, you might not want to get that much. You might want to get like the version below that. I think it's like 75 watts because it's going to produce a lot of heat, and you don't want to burn up your bearded dragon. So you don't have to worry about buying the $20 light bulb at a PetSmart or a pet store. You can buy that exact bulb at a Home Depot store and get like 6 for $20. I have a video on that as well. If you want to check that out, it's on my channel. And the last light source you're going to need is an LED light source. Now, why do you need this, you ask? Well, for first off, a UVB light tube is not going to produce enough light. Neither is a halogen light. The halogen's really for heat, and the UVB is there for UVB. Now, while they do produce light, it's still going to be very dark if you have a big giant cage for your bearded dragon. So the LED light source is going to be good for the bearded dragon because it's going to mimic natural sunlight. It's going to be very bright. For instance, when you're inside your house, you have lights on, and you go outside if you just woke up, it's very bright. You're like, whoa, it's bright. That's exactly what they live in, except they live in high brightness. It's the desert. There's no shade for big areas. It's sandy, and it's just super hot, bright sun reflecting off the sand into their face. So that's why you really just need to brighten the cage up. I see tons of pictures across the internet where bearded dragons only have the UVB bulb and the heat bulb, and the cage looks like it's like dark. It looks like it's, what is it, dusk? It's when the sun's going down. That's what it looks like inside the cage. Let's brighten it up. We need to brighten these cages back up. It's very cheap. An LED bulb costs you like $2 for one. You can get like a whole pack for like $8. And then I go get like a cheap clamp light. And for my stackable tanks that I build myself, I use a light bar, which is also cheap. It's below $20, and it can last you over a year. Temperatures inside the tank should be 100 to 110 on the basking spot. The air temperature, remember, is different from the basking temperature. Basking temperature is where the light hits directly and it makes that spot hot, and the air temperature is just the air inside of the tank. And the air on the hot side should be around 80 to 90 degrees. The cool side, where the LED light is going to be around 70 to 80. Humidity can be around 25 to 40%. And if it's 50%, that's fine too. Sometimes it's raining outside and inside my house gets a little bit, just humidity goes up and it's around 50%. That's fine. You don't have to worry about it. But between 25 to 50%, I would say, is perfect humidity. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic, which is the interior of the cage. So if you do like loose substrate like me, I have a video on how to make your own loose substrate. It is very good because this is going to sound crazy, but it's very true. A lot of substrate they sell in stores at pet stores are not good for bearded dragons. This includes walnut shells, calcium sand. Those substrates cause impaction, which pretty much is constipation. It clumps up together and they can't pass it when they poop, and it really does do a lot of harm on the bearded dragon. So don't use calcium sand, crushed walnuts, shells. Don't use cedar chips at all. Anything cedar is a no-no. Now, personally, myself, I make my own substrate. It's a mixture of peat moss, play sand, and topsoil. I like this new topsoil. I used to use Scott's like organic topsoil, but then I started using a different one. I think it's like Timberland or Timberline, and I like that one because it's more clay and it provides, like, sometimes bearded dragons will dig, and my bearded dragons have used that and dug burrows, which is pretty awesome. And they kind of like hang out in like underneath cork bark when they made themselves a little burrow. And I really switched to the new substrate. So I have a video explaining on exactly how to mix it. It'll also be linked in the description. My personal mix you get all at Home Depot or Lowe's, and it costs you like $20. But I will say it produces a lot of dirt. So if you only have like one bearded dragon and you buy all these ingredients, be prepared. You're gonna have a huge amount left over. When I mean huge, it's a lot. Now, you don't have to use my mix. You can use like paper towels. I do highly recommend using paper towels for like the first week just to monitor poops. If all of a sudden your bearded dragon goes down and he starts looking sickly, you can take the poop to a vet. It's not very much to get like a fecal examination. It's like $30, and they'll tell you if he has parasites or not. So one thing you want to add to the interior besides substrate is branches for your bearded dragon to climb on. So bearded dragons are actually semi-arboreal, which means they like to climb a little bit. In Australia, you can find them on fence posts and on fallen trees. They like to climb up to the top of the branch and just soak up the sun. I actually get my branches from outside. I usually go into the woods and I'll find oak trees, which are pretty easily identifiable. I'll find ones that I like with branches sticking out that I think is going to go good inside a tank, and I just chop it down. Once I chop it down, I kind of just trim it up a little bit, and then I take it home. When I take it home, I get a big 55-gallon bucket that I got at Home Depot. I fill it with water, and I just drench it in the water. I hold it down in the water for 10 minutes, and that will keep any bugs or anything that's crawling around on it that you just maybe didn't see. Usually will come to the surface, come swimming, trying not to drown. Now, after I do that, I go and I put it on a table like this outside my backyard, and I just let it hit the sun, hit it for like 2 days. Once that's done, you can just go ahead and throw it inside of a tank. And the reason I choose oak is because it's easily identifiable by its leaves, and it's safe for your bearded dragons. Now, you don't have to go into the woods and chop down a tree. You can go into a pet store and buy a stick or buy a branch, buy cork bark, whatever you want to do. But it's more expensive if you do that, and doing it this way, it's free. And also, you do want to check and make sure the branches don't have termites or anything like that before you tear it off. It's easy to see if it has termites because it has little holes, ridges, like little tunnels inside the wood. But if you're chopping down a tree, it's usually not going to have termites. Next up on the guide is diet, which is extremely important, and it varies in the age of bearded dragons. Now, if you didn't know this, bearded dragons are omnivores, which means they eat plants and animals. The bearded dragons will eat anything that moves that can fit in their mouth, which includes other bearded dragons. Now, insect-wise, you can feed a variety like crickets, dubia roaches, hornworms, superworms, black soldier fly, larvae, and much, much more. Heck, some people even feed baby mice to their bearded dragons. And remember, that is a treat. Don't feed them every day. Don't feed baby mice every day to your bearded dragon. And make sure it's an adult bearded dragon. I would say feed it like once a month. Plants, I feed mine greens in a huge variety. I feed them collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, romaine lettuce for hydration. Sometimes I'll get a spring mix, but it's very important when you get a spring mix that you take out the spinach. Spinach is not really healthy for bearded dragons at all, so make sure you take it out. It's very easy to identify because it's like a circular leaf, and the rest are more like usually chopped up, but spinach is small enough to where it's sold. They don't chop up spinach. Usually they put it in as a whole leaf. Another ingredient you want to stay away from is iceberg lettuce. Do not feed iceberg lettuce, as it's mainly just water with no nutritional value. I know I said romaine lettuce, which is similar, but romaine lettuce is just a tad bit better. And if your bearded dragon's a little dehydrated, you can go ahead and feed them romaine lettuce. But stick to some really good, nice collard greens and other type of greens as well, like mustard and turnip greens. And the reason I speak of hydration is because bearded dragons really don't drink out of a water bowl. You can offer them a water bowl. Mine have never drinking out of a water bowl at all. I've never seen them. I monitor them. I just stare at them, look into their eyes. I'm like, why won't you drink out of the water bowl? But bearded dragons just don't. And what a lot of times I do is I'll get my sprayer. I have a little sprayer, and I'll just drop some water droplets on the tip of their like nose, their head, and if they're thirsty, they'll drink it. If they're not, they're gonna be like, hey, get away from me, what are you doing? And they won't drink it. And if you are worried, you can feed them like one leaf of romaine lettuce a week to make sure they are hydrated, because it's a lot of water. And that is pretty much covering the whole water bowl. Do you need one? Do you not need one? You can offer the water bowl, but again, every day I go in there and I'll just drop a water droplet on their head. And if they drink it, a lot of times they'll probably drink like once a week. For my bearded dragons do. Every time I drop some water on their head, they're like, hey, what are you doing? And then on one days when they're thirsty, they'll definitely drink it. Now, I said before that bearded dragons' age determines how they will eat, and this part is going to be very important. Now, I feed my baby bearded dragons as much as they can eat per day, and I usually feed them at morning, lunch, and dinner. And this could range from 5 to 10 crickets on each of those lunch periods. Yes, that means a baby bearded dragon in a day can eat 20 to 50 crickets. Now, you're probably getting scared. You're probably like, that's a lot of crickets. I can't buy that many crickets. It's so much. Don't worry about it. What you can do is buy it online. That's what I do. I buy 1,000 crickets all at one time. And for baby bearded dragons, you're going to be buying like 1,000 crickets a month, pretty much, like maybe 2,000. So I buy 1,000 crickets. It's very cheap. I can get it from Pangea Reptiles, RainbowMealworms.com, Fluker Farms. There's tons of places you can buy bulk crickets for very cheap. It's usually like $20 for 1,000. I also dust my crickets with calcium at least one time a week. I don't do more than 3 times a week though. You can if you want to, but I don't. Now, as you know, they do eat plants, so there is a ratio that you can use for baby bearded dragons, and the ratio is going to be 80% insects, 20% plants. So during the day, yes, you can give them the insects, but also should give them a little bit of like collard greens, the mustard greens, or whatever. You don't have to give them a lot. Keep it at an 80-20 ratio. And again, this ratio is going to change with age. At about 18 months, a year and a half, that's going to switch. It's going to be pretty much like a 25% insect diet and 75% plant diet. Feeding habits going to change a lot with age as well. When my bearded dragon reaches adult age, I change how much I feed it. I do not feed it every single day. I actually skip a day or 2 days because when they're older, they're very good at storing their fat. And what we see lots today in the reptile hobby is very obese and fat bearded dragons. This isn't good for them. It's just like humans. Once you get fat and obese, it could cause a lot of problems like fatty liver disease, all kinds of conditions. So like I said, you can feed them, you can skip a day, feed them, skip a day, and feed them. And you obviously don't have to feed them that much crickets and that much greens. You can also make it smaller portions as well once they're older, because then they're fully grown, they have all the fat stored, they're really good at storing their fat. You're gonna find this out. And if your bearded dragon gets obese, it's gonna be very, very difficult to get it to lose weight, because reptiles are very good about storing their fat for long periods of time without having to lose any weight. So now we've covered the basis of how to care for your bearded dragon. Let's talk about behaviors, because bearded dragons have a lot of personality and they're going to be doing a lot of funny things that you're going to be asking yourself, what are they doing? Or is it okay that they're doing this? Let's get into it. So now that you have a bearded dragon, one thing you're going to notice is head bobbing. A lot of dragons do this if they see another dragon or reflection. It's a sign of dominance over their territory, because dragons are very territorial. So if you see this, just know that it's probably seeing its own reflection, or it thinks there's something else around and it's telling that thing, hey, this is my territory. And they also do this when they see a female and they want to mate. Another one is arm waving. It's a neat one because it looks like they're saying hi to you. This is a submissive move they do so you won't harm them. Females will also do this to show a male that they are submissive and they do want to mate. Mouth opening is a very popular one. A lot of people are not used to this, so when they see it for the first time, they're very scared. This is a very normal behavior, and it means that a bearded dragon is hot, and all they're doing is just trying to cool off. It's how they thermoregulate their bodies. Another thing I see people ask about is when a bearded dragon's trying to dig. Like a lot of times he'll just have his nose down and he'll just scratch and stuff like that. That just means he's trying to dig, okay? So if you see that, it's gonna be perfectly fine, don't worry about it. And these are the things you're gonna see from owning a bearded dragon. Next up that I don't see a lot of people talking about is brumation. Brumation is a form of hibernation. In your first year owning a bearded dragon, they're probably not going to go into brumation. A lot of juveniles don't, but after a year, the following year, the second year, a lot of bearded dragons do go into brumation, and people get worried. The reason being is that they go to sleep and it just seems like they don't wake up. They hide in a corner. They don't want food. They're not eating, and they're just sleeping all day. A lot of people get worried. They think their dragon is sick, but if it got cold outside and you can kind of feel winter in the air and your dragon goes down, he's just simply hibernating, and that's called brumation. You have nothing to worry about when the dragon's out of brumation or when it gets warmer outside or in your house. He's gonna come out of it and he'll come sit up on his log, bask under the light. A lot of times in brumation, it's really weird because they do go down for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks and just sleep. And then out of nowhere, they'll come up, start eating, sit under the basking light, check everything out, and then go right back into brumation. And this can last pretty much the whole winter. And once they come out, they will start eating and doing regular stuff again. So be prepared for that. Don't worry. Now, if he is losing weight, your bearded dragon starts going into brumation and it starts losing weight drastically, take it to the vet, because most likely it has a parasite and you're going to need some dewormer to get the parasites out. But if the bearded dragon's staying the same size and he's going to sleep and he's still looking fat, you're perfectly fine. It's just brumation. So now I've taught you all I can about the general care requirements for a bearded dragon. I hope you enjoyed. Continue learning, continue researching. If you do enjoy this, like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.